Hey, and welcome back to a new video. I hope you're having a great day, and let's get straight into the stories. Story 1. College Beard. Hello. This is my first ever post regarding a beard. I encountered this one for the first time at a scholarship event a few days before my first day of uni. Now he won't leave me alone. I don't really have too many long stories involving him, mainly because I make an effort to avoid him like the plague. So here's a fun list of short accounts and maybe a longer one as well. For these posts, I'll refer to myself as S, and I'll refer to the beard as Viking Beard. Made an effort to sit with me anytime I had lunch in the campus's convenience area. Here, he would very much try to flirt with me, talk about his Viking heritage, in which all his info about comes from movies and TV shows, and how I can always talk to him rather than my sheltered homeschooled friend. For context, my friend is not even homeschooled. He did online learning for 1 year. He often would belittle this friend of mine in order to try to make himself seem a lot cooler in comparison, which already pissed me off. One of these times, he followed me to my class, which I was trying to escape to in order to avoid him. So, in the empty classroom, we ended up talking for a while as I paced around the room. Here, we somehow got to the topic of what we like in partners, and he and I both agreed that having cooking skills is a likable trait. However, he then said, "Well, I could always cook for you," or something along those lines. My memory is pretty hazy considering I blocked most of it out in order to keep myself from vomiting from secondhand embarrassment. Eventually, someone showed up and he finally left me alone. During a volunteer event, he ended up working alongside me, my friend I mentioned before, and another student. We were done for the night and were about to watch a fireworks show. My friend and I often smack each other around, but never hard enough to do any real damage OFC. So, when Viking Beard saw me playfully punch my friend's arm, he took it upon himself to jab my friend in the stomach. Viking Beard did wrestling, so this guy had muscle mass, and so the punch sent my friend clutching his stomach from the impact. If I remember right, this ended up leaving a bruise on his stomach. Viking Beard does not like to follow the rules set out by our scholarship requirements. He hardly does any volunteer work, turned in all of his necessary papers late, and insisted that he didn't, and that our instructor emailed him the due date personally. She did not. Another rule he likes to break is using AI to do his homework. He admitted this to my friend. Yes, the one he punched in the gut. Meanwhile, everyone else in our scholarship program is working their butts off in order to keep our GPAs up. We told our instructor, but nothing can be done, so we just have to wait until the college's AI checkers catch on. Oh, and he's also on probation for the scholarship at the moment because he didn't follow the requirements. There was one night that he had messaged me on Discord, even though I said I was busy, and we started talking about Norse mythology. For context, I am pagan, more specifically, an eclectic pagan, meaning I believe in many pantheons of gods. I mostly have worked with the Greek-Roman deities and the Nordic deities. So mythology is very important to my belief system. Though I don't take many of the stories literally, as unlike how the Bible or other holy texts are described, they are not the direct words of the gods and are more like ye old fan fiction made by man. I bring this up because we ended up getting onto the subject of Loki, who I work with and have an altar for in my dorm. In the time I worked with him, Loki has been mischievous, but never awful. There's the occasional thing of some really crazy stuff will happen, but nothing more than that. Overall, it's amazing working with him. Viking Beard expressed a desire to look into Nordic paganism, which I encouraged because I think it's a great idea to explore your belief system. However, he then proceeded to talk all about how Loki was evil and malevolent, which is BS because even from the purely mythological standpoint, people who actually look into Loki know he is not specifically good nor evil. He just is. But then, after saying this, did a full 180 and talked about how much he wanted to work with Thor if he did get into paganism, because he's always been interested in that god. I tried not to get mad about it, but it definitely rubbed me the wrong way, especially considering a real Viking, as he describes himself, wouldn't talk shit about their gods, especially Loki. 5. Now finally, the moment you've been waiting for. Drumroll, the longer story. So, I had recently taken my other friend, let's call her B, to a local, small anime convention as an early birthday gift. We were both really excited, and I even showed up in cosplay of one of my favorite fictional characters. We were fine at the start, but soon we saw him. in all of his bowling pin-shaped glory, Viking beard. We had gotten too close, and I knew he'd spot me if he looked in our direction as we walked away, so I ripped the bandage off and said hello when he saw us. When he saw us, he said he wasn't expecting to see us here, and that he just happened to attend the con the same day as us, which I could call BS on so fast considering I told him I was going Sunday. A few days prior, he offered to hang out with me there, though I said no because I wanted to hang out with B since we only usually see each other about once or twice a year. We exchanged a few words and walked off. For the next hour or so, I kept spotting him lurking around behind us as we walked around. B has issues with large crowds and anxiety, so having this guy follow us around was freaking her out and it was pissing me off. I wouldn't have cared if it was just me being followed. I could handle that, but I was sick and tired of him making B uncomfortable. So while we looked around, I acted as a watchdog, making sure we would lose him in the crowd and stay on the other side of the center from him. Eventually, we made our way to the voice actors area. There were only 4 there, considering it was a smaller event, but I was excited nonetheless. B and I went up to the booths to meet the actors and get the autographs. After the first one, we moved to the second booth and, seemingly from thin air, Viking Beard appeared. He showed us a fake sword he bought, modeled after Zorro's from One Piece. I begrudgingly talked to him, occasionally glancing around and looking for an escape. In doing so, I spotted on of the VAs, and I swore I saw a brief look of pity flash on his face in my direction at the exchange. I am not good at hiding my facial expressions, so it was probably blatantly obvious I was uncomfortable. Me and B slowly started to move towards the booth, and Viking Beard finally took the hint and said his goodbyes. He left not long after that, and the rest of the con was fun for me and B. We got all the autographs done, ended up learning a new song because one of the VAs showed it to us after hearing what my name was. It was in the song's title. And I ended up winning a Funko Pop at a costume contest. These are only a few of the instances with this beard, as some of the others aren't very notable. If anything new happens, I might post a story on it. Hello, I'm back with a small update on the college neckbeard, aka Viking Beard. I have generally managed to avoid him around campus and keep messaging to a minimum. The reason why I have to message him is because if I don't message him back, he'll typically look for me around campus. Anyways, I made a post a while back about Viking Beard and his cringy and creepy behaviors, as one does on this subreddit, and I wasn't expecting to be able to add anything of value. However, he appeared again, like a hated video game NPC whose cutscene is so long you start jamming A to try to skip past the dialogue. I was simply making my way around campus, looking for a volunteer opportunity for my volunteer credit hours for my scholarship. Then I heard a voice call my name, and I turned. He was making his way to me. I was already spotted, so I turned and cursed before turning back with the fakest, most years of pageantry ingrained smile I could muster. We say hi and he follows me around and we talk until we get back to my dorm building. I just wanted to go to my room and eat my ice cream, but he would not leave me alone. So we ended up talking for literally an hour and a half. The worst part is that during this entire conversation, if I took a step back, he kept getting closer to me. I have told him I hate being touched or being in close proximity to people I don't trust, but I guess either he has the memory of a goldfish or just doesn't care. Anyways, at some point into the conversation, we get into the topic of fashion because of a story I told. We agreed that just because you dress a certain way, that doesn't mean you are of a specific political ideology. I did bring up C, however, that labels such as punk cannot be used unless someone aligns with the values of that community. I said, as an example, you cannot call yourself a punk and advocate for equality while you worship the ground Elon Musk and Donald Trump walk on because they constantly exploit lower and middle-class workers. He proceeded to say that he didn't mind the two people, and I expressed that I was not a fan of Elon due to the fact he is a Nazi. Here's essentially how this conversation went. Viking Beard. Are you talking about when he did that arm thing? Me? The Nazi salute? Yes. Viking Beard? Well, it wasn't a Nazi salute, it was an accident. Me? He did it twice. Viking Beard? Okay, but... Me? He's banned in Germany now. Viking Beard. Viking Beard. Okay, but he did this, demonstrates the salute, but completely wrong. He didn't put his hand flat like Elon did and had his fingers apart. Me. No, do it properly. Tilt your hand. Viking beard keeps his arm down and stands awkwardly. Me. That's what I thought. We cut off the conversation soon after that, and I was finally able to escape to my dorm. Finals week is coming soon, so I hopefully don't have to deal with him again after I get all the exams done. If not, well, tune in next time for the next post of Viking Beard. Story 2. In my time at university, I had the bad luck of running into several incel neckbeard-style creeps, but this incident was the most bizarre one by a mile. TLDR at the end. Sometime in my second year, I was approached by this talkative Indian guy at the bus stop. I have to specify his race because, as you've probably guessed from the title, it will play a big part in the BS that's about to happen. This guy, who I'll just refer to as Guy for the rest of the story, was just looking for directions, but we started chatting and hit it off almost immediately. It turned out Guy was also a student at my uni, so we started hanging out a lot after that and became close friends. Looking back at it, there were a few red flags right from the get-go, but I didn't register them at the time. Every time we'd meet, Guy would ask me some variation of, "Where are the girls?" And when I say every time, I mean every time. We bump into each other in public at random. "Where are the girls?" He invites me to his flat and I turn up. "Where are the girls?" You get the idea. I just passed it off as an odd but harmless personality quirk, because besides this repetitive question of his, he was always super chill and friendly. Red flag number 2 happened when I tried to introduce Guy to a friendship group of mine that lived in the same accommodation as him. A few weeks after it happened, my friend said they had to speak in private with Guy to resolve something going on between him and somebody else they knew. They told me it was private stuff and that they had resolved it, so I didn't bother prying further. But it was worth noting that after that, every time I asked Guy if he wanted to hang out with me and my other friends, he'd be very reluctant. Or to be more specific, he'd say he didn't want my friends because they were guys, and he wanted girls. After a few solid months of friendship, Guy began to have a little bit of a punctuality problem. Whenever we arranged a hangout, he'd never turn up and proceeded to ignore all my messages asking where he was. I'd usually find out his excuse in a few days' time. There was also this one awful incident where I was 10 minutes late to meeting him at his accommodation, something I had already told him about by text. So he blew me off completely. Text messages, social media, phone calls, none of them got a response. I just sat in the reception area, catching up on shows I missed, and 3 hours later, Guy arrives. And the first thing he says after seeing me isn't, "Hi," it isn't "sorry," it's, "Yep, you guessed it. Where are the girls?" This man didn't just expect me to be surrounded by a harem of girls 24/7. He expected these girls to wait 3 hours for a total stranger they had never met before. As for his excuse why he wasn't home, because I was running late, he figured he should go help another one of his friends study. He was browsing Snapchat the whole time while saying this, so I knew damn well he saw all my messages and chose to ignore them. At that point, I figured it was time to tone down the friendship a little. I enjoyed hanging out with Guy, but that clearly wasn't going to happen anymore, so why bother? I didn't block him or cut contact or anything, but I did stop arranging to meet up with him and talking with him as much on social media. Fast forward a few more months, and I had completely forgotten Guy existed. Until, by sheer coincidence, he crossed paths with me and 2 of my other friends, an Arab boy and a white girl. Guy told me he wanted to meet up with me and these 2 friends, and he went into overdrive planning this dinner at a restaurant out. I told him straight up, I'm not playing around anymore. If he wants to keep our friendship, he'd have to stick to his damn word and actually show up at this dinner of his. He promised me he will, and my 2 friends said they were chill with coming along, so we had ourselves a plan. Guy seemed to understand how much of a dick he'd been in the past, because he texted me at frequent intervals to keep confirming details about the dinner. Maybe a bit too frequent. Every day we'd go over the time, the place, what to do if we were running late, and whether my 2 friends were still good to come along. Okay, that last one was a lie. He'd specifically asked me about the white girl, who I'll refer to as WG from now on. Eventually, it came. The day of the dinner, technically, I was woken up at 3 a.m. by a phone call from Guy. Given the time, I was worried it could be something serious, and immediately asked him if he was okay. He didn't acknowledge my question, instead asking me again if WG was coming to the dinner. I remember letting out a nervous chuckle and telling him that while it's good he cares about punctuality now, this is getting a little too much. But Guy wasn't done. He told me he had a plan. After the dinner was over, I was to push WG to go with Guy to a second dinner where it would just be them alone. When I asked him to elaborate on what he meant by push, Guy told me to persuade her at all costs to comply. According to him, since I was her friend, she would listen to me and go on a date with him. Yep, you read that right. Guy wanted me to ask out a girl on his behalf. WG had just come out of a pretty nasty breakup and wasn't in the mood for a relationship. Something I told Guy straight away. But he was just like, we must still try. He pulled some emotional manipulation bullcrap like, I think of you as a brother. Do you do the same to me? But it was 3 a.m. and I was not in the mood, so I just muted my phone and cut the call. After I had gotten some sleep, I told my friends about the shit Guy was trying to pull, and we switched plans to have dinner elsewhere with just the three of us. My two friends have a good laugh at the comically disgusting way Guy was texting about them, treating the boy like he didn't exist, and WG like she was an object without her own agency. And I had a laugh too because Guy was texting me and calling me nonstop. I will admit I was a petty bitch and continued to air him for a while just to get back at him for those 3 hours he made me wait. After a week of airing, through which Guy would not stop trying to get through to me, I broke the silence. I told him he's a fucking moron for thinking that another guy can ask out a girl on his behalf, and a terrible friend on top of that. I also gave him some tips on how to ask out a girl in the hope that he'll use them. It's at this point the truth gets revealed. Guy never wanted to be friends with me because he liked me as a person. He wanted to be friends with me because I am a muscular white guy, and he had a thing for white girls. According to his twisted logic, if he was friends with me, I would act like a beacon of sorts that would get him attention from girls of my skin color. I am beyond disgusted and block him on everything. And since I didn't want him creeping on other girls or being a dick to other guys just because of something as superficial as fucking race, I posted a warning about him on my Instagram story. It's then that someone from the first group of friends I mentioned reached out to me. You know, the one that had to resolve a private issue with Guy. It turns out that this issue involved Guy trying to corner a white girl at social events and stroke her hands without her permission. Yikes. So what ended up happening to Guy? Thankfully, he was graduating soon, so after that year I never saw him again. But he wouldn't stop being a nuisance while he could. He knew I went home at summer break while WG was an international student who stayed on campus, and he waited until then to start obsessively stalking her. Despite her running away and proving she wasn't interested multiple times, he kept on doing it. Until I faked returning to campus, which shut down his cowardly ass immediately. TLDR, Guy befriends me because he thinks that as a white guy, I will attract him some white girls. And he does not take any fucking hints. So that's all for today. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.